sounds like really muffled here.
I sound muffled?
No, the music does.
Oh.
But let me get back to the clown.
Okay, so welcome back to the Peru Sisters podcast. And I'd just like to welcome Gia back to our channel. How are you doing today, Gia?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Welcome back, all of our guests. We know you have a lot of places you can be on your Saturdays, so we appreciate that you're here at our show and spending this time with us. So Gia is going to start with some updates to what's going on with the case. So I'm going to give the floor to Gia.
Okay, thanks, Kiki. Yeah, I actually this morning I came across the order denying the defendant's motion to reconsider and then the motion for permissive appeal. And I thought we should probably talk about that, right? So this kind of dates back a little bit of background. Back in July, Bryan Kohlberger had filed a motion to dismiss the indictment on grounds of error in grand jury instructions, or in the alternative, remand for preliminary hearing. And then in August, he filed a motion to dismiss the indictment on grounds of a biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct in withholding exculpatory evidence. So they had a hearing in October. Mid-December, it was denied. And so then less than a week after the denial, Kohlberger filed another motion and a motion to reconsider orders denying the motions to dismiss indictment, and in the alternative for permission to appeal from interlocutory orders and a stay of proceedings. So that's what was being ruled on, and it came out pretty quickly because the hearing was just January 26th, and it was two parts. If you remember, the first part was closed to the public to protect the secrecy of the grand jury proceedings. The second one focused primarily on the standard required for a grand jury indictment. And then they talked about when would the trial be, right? So, and of course, the trial has not been set yet. Defense looks like they want it spring of 2025, but even better, summer of 2025. I think they'd like it even later if they could. The state originally wanted it this summer of 2024, but they kind of agreed with the defense that probably summer of 2025 would be better, but judge has yet to rule on that aspect yet. Now, whenever a judge is making a ruling or answering the motion, ruling on a motion, they have to explain in their answer how they arrived at their decision according to the law, right? They don't make it in a vacuum. They don't make it based on their discretion. They make it based on stare decisis and on statutes, right? So, and then just to give you a little information because of what I'm going to say in the next minute, there's something called rules of procedure that have to be followed in the courtroom. And depending on what court it is, they're different. So if it's a criminal court is different than civil court is different than family court. All right. So, and the judge's decision, he commented that the Idaho criminal rules of procedure do not expressly provide for a motion for reconsideration. The rules of civil procedure do. So then what he's saying, however, it's not wrong to do it. You can still make the motion. These motions have not been deemed improper if they're made. So Kohlberger made it. So according to the Idaho Rules of Civil Procedure, which they're going to follow on a motion for reconsideration if they're going to do it, the decision to grant or deny a request for reconsideration generally rests in the sound discretion of the trial court, which would be judge, okay, in this case.
So he's definitely the trial judge, or is that
well,
not?
He is so far. I mean, all the hearings take place in the trial court, so he has been the trial judge.
Okay.
So far, and then you go to the appellate, and then you go to the Supreme Court. Every state has 3 levels. Okay, so, and then there's 2 reasons usually for a motion to reconsider. They could be based on if there's new evidence that's come to light. They may want the judge to consider that and rule, or calculated to draw the court's attention to errors of law or fact in the initial decision. So they're saying, hey, judge, when you made that decision, you didn't follow the law correctly in arriving there. And so we're asking you to reconsider. And this is what they've done. Okay. And so generally, another thing that I wanted to point out is, so Bryan Kohlberger, so when he said in the alternative, he was requesting permission to do an interlocutory appeal. And usually the trial court's role under this is to differentiate between those interlocutory orders for which an appeal ought to be permitted because an immediate appeal will ultimately facilitate the litigation, and those where an appeal would unduly disrupt the case or unfairly prejudice a party. So what they're saying is, look, I'm going to allow the appeal because I think that it's going to get us to court faster. It's going to ease the procedures for litigation. It's going to make things a lot smoother for the case, for both sides, for everybody involved. That's one thing. That would be a reason they would grant it. But then the other thing is, if they grant it, is this going to disrupt the case? Is it going to prejudice the party? Is it fair to the victims' families, that kind of thing. So that's just a little background. And for an appeal may be taken from an interlocutory order under very limited circumstances. I'm reading this from the order. First, the order appealed from must involve a controlling question of law as to which there is substantial grounds for difference of opinion, meaning could another judge have looked at the same thing and come to a different conclusion, right? Second, it must appear that an immediate appeal from the order may materially advance the orderly resolution of the litigation. So it's saying it's going to get us to trial faster, right? And get this over with faster. It says, a court determining whether to hear an interlocutory appeal should also consider the impact of an immediate appeal upon the parties, the effect of the delay of the proceedings in the district court pending the appeal, the likelihood or possibility of a second appeal after judgment is finally entered by the district court, and the case workload of the appellate courts. So in the analysis for the reconsideration part, because there's 2 parts, there's the reconsideration and then there's asking permission to appeal. For the reconsideration, the judge is saying, for reasons that he articulated during the proceedings on the record on January 26th, the defendant's motion for reconsideration is denied. And his reasoning was basically that his original decision to deny it was soundly rooted in case law, constitutional law, statutes, and criminal rules. The court does not find error with any factual findings or applications of well-settled law to the facts as found. In reaching its decision, the court spent a significant amount of time reviewing the grand jury proceedings and researching the issues presented by defendant. Reconsideration does not change the court's decision. So, but that's usually the case, right? That's usually the case. And then as far as the permission to appeal, again, the judge says for reasons articulated on the record at the hearing on January 26th, defendant's motion for permission to appeal from interlocutory orders is denied. And his reasoning for that, he said, it's a well-settled law in Idaho that the standard for a grand jury indictment is probable cause. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. And the defendant himself recognizes this. Okay, so in Idaho, colleagues of defense counsel have presented this theory on 3 separate occasions to district judges, and all have agreed that probable cause and not beyond a reasonable doubt is the appropriate standard. So thus, there are not substantial grounds for differences of opinion on this issue. So that's why it was denied. And then they said that the defendant was arguing that it violates his due process, but there's no case law supporting his position. And that's because in the event, if you had a grand jury of 12 persons, you could take one juror, and if that individual had reasons for, if you could find fault for one of the 12, then that could be grounds for dismissal. However, there were 16 jurors on this grand jury, so that doesn't matter. He's barking up the wrong tree, in other words. And then the other thing the judge spoke to was saying, like, an immediate appeal of the orders denying dismissal of the indictment would not materially advance the orderly resolution of the litigation. So he's like, quite the opposite is true. And what he stated in his opinion here is the case has already been pending for a year, and at this juncture, trial may not even be set until spring or summer of 2025. If an appeal is granted now, the case will essentially come to a halt for some period while the appellate court reviews the grand jury proceedings, causing even further delay. And the gain to defendant, even assuming a permissive appeal is granted by the appellate court and the appellate court rules in the defendant's favor, is de minimis, as the state has stated that charges would immediately be refiled. So he's not going to get anything from it. And Judge Judge says, stated differently, the likelihood of the defendant being released from custody, even if the indictment were dismissed by a higher court, is essentially non-existent. The only path forward for either side is a trial. And then he goes on to say, additionally, as time passes, both sides are faced with the reality that witnesses' memories may fade or witnesses may become unavailable, which may cause prejudice to one or both sides. And finally, while the court remains steadfast in its obligation to ensure defendants' constitutional rights are protected, the court is also mindful of the victim's family's constitutional right to a timely disposition of the case. And so he's saying an appeal right now would not advance the defendant's rights or the rights of the victim's families. So he doesn't find it in the best interest of either party. And he says, finally, if the defendant is convicted by a trial jury, and especially if the death penalty is imposed, there will undoubtedly be years of appeals to come where the issues raised by defendant now may be reviewed by a higher court. So he's saying there's a time and a place for the appeals process, and it's not now. It'll be after the trial if there is a conviction. And that was it. And so for these reasons, he denied both.
And when did that document get dropped?
That was filed February 1st.
Okay.
So 2 days ago.
I have a couple of quick questions for you, if you don't mind.
And it was filed like at 5 o'clock practically. So really yesterday. But go ahead.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that you caught that before we went live so that we were giving some.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to really dive into it, but
I just had a couple immediate reactions to some of the things you were saying. The first thing I was going to say is it was interesting hearing what you were reading about the witnesses' memories, because when we did our live coverage of this, that was something you said yourself. You sort of had a sense of this, that was the one thing that impacted you is, okay, well, we have these witness accounts and memories fade in another additional. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, do you have a sense of when he might come back with when the judge might come back and talk to us again, particularly with the ruling on the court date? Do you have a sense of how long that's going to take?
You mean like when is he going to say the trial is slated for? I think he's
Well,
going to take his time. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I think he's going to take his time with that. I mean, I think he knows what he's going to do already, but he'll put it out there. There's no rush, as he said, because we're so far away from a trial date. It's not like it's going to be in 2 months, right? It's either going to be a year from now, like more than a year from now, or even further out. Because spring of 2025 was one thing that was thrown out there, and that's a little more than a year from now. And then obviously summer is about a year and a half from now.
So would he have to, so recently Ann Taylor filed a motion to change venue. Will he have to rule obviously on the venue before he rules on a court date? Is that how obvious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. He'll rule on this. I'll pull that up. Okay. Share this tab instead.
Wait, can I ask one question before you talk about that motion?
Yeah. Okay.
I just really want you to clear up one terminology for me. I hear this word a lot, and I've never really had the chance to ask anyone what it means. I probably should have Googled it before now. But what exactly is stare decisis? Is this something to do with precedents or
already decided? Yeah, precedent cases. Okay.
All right. So when he was saying that 3 times defense people have brought up this same argument about the grand jury, and in all 3 times there was precedent saying that probable cause was what they used for the. So
they're saying he's saying by that is like there's not an issue of a legal question of law, because would it be that if that went to another judge, would they say, no, it's not probable cause, it's reasonable doubt? And what he's saying is your colleagues have taken this forward 3 separate times to 3 different district trial judges, and they've all said the same thing, that it's probable cause. The standard is probable cause. So it's not likely that they're going to go again and get someone to say reasonable doubt. So I think that the judge was just saying, I feel very comfortable with this fact that
he's ruling
it's probable cause, and it has been for like over 100 years. They know that. But again, the reasons for a lot of these motions aren't. A lot of times they know they're going to be denied. They know they are, but it's setting it up for appeal.
Okay. And that seems to be the theme when we watch.
Well, that's the legal strategy, right? Because anytime in a murder case, you have to take the steps to set it up for appeal if you lose. So, and kind of that brings us to the change of venue. So they motioned for a change of venue. And so I thought that was interesting, but I knew that was going to happen. I mean, it was pretty obvious. The writing was on the wall, let's say, right? They just hadn't done it yet. But she did it. It was very pithy, a very short motion, and basically says they're moving for a change of venue. Bryan requests a jury pool from outside Latah County. The motion is made pursuant to blah, blah, blah. And they say a fair and impartial jury cannot be found in, I'm not saying that wrong, Latah County.
I think it's Latah County, yes.
Yeah, Latah, okay. A fair and impartial jury cannot be found in Latah County owing to the extensive inflammatory pre-trial publicity, allegations made about Mr. Kohlberger to the public by media that will be inadmissible at his trial, the small size of the community, the salacious nature of the alleged crimes, and the severity of the charges Mr. Kohlberger faces. Enlarging the jury pool will not do anything to overcome that pervasive prejudicial publicity, because Latah County does not have a large enough population center to avoid the bias in the community. Further, the size of the community and the interconnectedness of its citizenry is problematic and will prevent a fair and impartial pool of potential jurors. So they request an opportunity to be heard through evidentiary presentation and argument no sooner than the end of April 2024. So they're not even prepared to argue this until the end of April.
Oh my gosh. So, okay. So that.
And then, so they want a hearing. So I'm guessing the hearing will be May, and the judge will hear it. And, you know, he seems pretty quick with his rulings. So I think he's already expecting the venue. And I've heard on other shows, legal shows, to say that it's not automatic that the judge goes to the change of venue. They would also have to, like the state would have to ask for that. I don't know how that works. We could look into it, but I heard somebody say it wasn't Nancy Grace, but someone like that, to say it's not automatically guaranteed you keep your judge.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because we had some conversation earlier that with the Daybell trial, that was moved to Boise due to the same reasons, tainted
Right.
jury pool, and both of those defendants were moved to Boise, and they kept the judge in both instances. So
Right.
just
I think they will, because it's already been a year plus, and you just look at all the documents that have been filed in this case. It would be really hard for a new judge to come on board and catch up with all of that, because he's kind of been here since the beginning.
I can't even imagine, especially just with the fact that the rulings that have been made on when the judge had to take 30 days to review all of that DNA stuff. Yeah, it would take a long time. So it's all really interesting. I do feel though I feel some inertia forward, so it's nice to see. And Annie Ruler had a couple questions regarding the Brady. I think she's talking about Brady Giglio. Hold on.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, seems like I'm on my phone. Can you read these out loud? I don't know.
Oh, seems like automatic BD should happen if the evidence cited on warrant needs to be presented first appearance. Payne acts like this is a game. Carr send photos and cameras, including those Pullmans. I don't really know what that means.
I don't know either. And then she wrote this.
Brady violation.
Well,
share.
Hold on. I got this too. Well, if any other judge was watching this, they would probably be glad to.
Because this man is not get a fair trial, and they know it. Okay.
Sorry, there's like a thing in the way, and I can hardly read these. I appreciate.
I'll read it. Well,
Well,
if any other judge would be watching this, they would probably be glad too, because this man is not getting a fair trial, and they know it. I think. Do you mean? Oh, if they would take on the case, right? Yeah. I don't think anyone would willingly want to take on this case, right? And I think what you're saying, are you saying he's not going to get a fair trial if they don't change the venue? Love, Tina?
And I think you said that too, Gia, in one of our last live streams. You're like, the people in this town are they're ready.
Yeah. No, I don't think you get a fair trial. Yeah. Okay. Love Tina said yes, and I agree. He's not going to get a fair trial. I think it'll definitely be moved. And maybe it'll go to Boise. I don't know. And just because Boise has a larger look, this case is so sensationalized, as we've said. I don't know if there are people in the world who haven't heard of it, right? So it's not just but I agree with the motion to change the venue. Just because they, at least if they're in a bigger area like Boise, they're gonna have way more people. The people in Moscow, they're just, it's too raw. It's too close to home. It just.
Yeah, and I think as time goes by, I mean, I agree with you more and more. When we thought there was going to be a trial in October, it was one thing, but as we're moving on, I seem to agree. And they're
barking. Okay, I like this. Okay, she says, I understand the need to move forward, but this is a DP case, and you can't just breeze through it. I've been through this myself. My customer service rep was executed at my store, and it took 7 years to bring to trial. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That must have been a horrific experience. But yeah, at least the wheels of justice turn slowly, as we all know. So who knows how long that could be beyond 2025.
Yeah, we appreciate you adding to the conversation. Thank you for contributing and sharing something personal. We appreciate that. I got this next. Read that, my friend.
Yes, I'm sorry. My friend got a Brady violation for not telling other side what timestamp on one tape had exculpatory evidence. Tossed terabytes is insulting, disorganized. I'm not sure what that means.
I think, you know what, I think what if I had to guess what and Annie, I'm sorry if I'm interpreting what you're saying wrong. What Annie's comment makes me think of is the way that Ann Taylor was saying, I'm not necessarily condemning the prosecution here, but the process might be off because we're getting different files from different places, and none of them are in chronological order and in any sort of order. So she just gets a document dump, which isn't sorted through. And
They all do that. That's normal.
yeah, so I think, yeah.
It is, but I know it. Okay,
Oh.
so this was a case in Maryland so Annie, thank you for bringing this, and I wasn't aware that it was called this, but just to educate our viewers, it was a landmark United States Supreme Court case that established that the prosecution must turn over all evidence that might exonerate the defendant, exculpatory evidence, to the defense. So, and I think that's what kind of came up the other day on the live stream too, and in the hearing, and they were talking about that, like, it didn't seem to me that Ann Taylor was accusing the state of doing that. I think they had mentioned it, right? But I think that she seemed pretty confident that they weren't doing that there were other organizations that were dragging their feet, that by the time the prosecution could get it and then get it to her, it did seem slow, but I don't think she was accusing the state of that.
I actually thought yeah, I was under the impression she was actually clearing that up, and I think she even kind of said it along those lines. She's like, I just want to clear up, I'm not saying the
Right.
state this, it's that
she did.
process itself, the way that we get this evidence turned over to us, seems to be no rhyme or reason.
Right. But you know what? Exactly. If there is evidence, as long as there's evidence that they're still waiting on, then there shouldn't be the trial. I agree with that. And to Annie, who said like it took 7 years to go to trial. Okay, sometimes evidence, you can't control how fast or how slowly evidence is being turned over to the prosecutor or the defense from the prosecution. I mean, that would be really dirty. This is way too publicized of a case for them to do something like that. And that would mean they have an ulterior motive of, I don't even think the state wants to convict him necessarily if they think there's any shred of evidence that he's the wrong person. But obviously at this point, they do believe he's the correct person. He's the only person who's been charged, right? So.
Yeah. And I think part of our responsibility is we try to show objectively each side of the story, and there's a really strong case that the prosecution has, and we've got to, show both sides of the story. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I honestly, like, the longer this goes on, the less I'll admit in the beginning, I was like, oh, he's guilty. I just know. Well, I don't really know. And so that's why I think this trial is going to be so interesting, because I'm very curious to see all of the things that I don't know so that I can make more of an informed opinion. Because to be honest, with the information that we have right now, everything that you heard before it got sealed or anything that's not sealed, which isn't very much, we don't know much. We really don't know much. So I don't think there's enough to say it was definitely him. There could be when it's unveiled, but we don't have enough to say one way or the other. Does it look bad for him? Yeah. Doesn't look great. But again, we've talked about that, how circumstantial evidence can add up and make it look one way and it's really not. So we'll see. Do you want me to read this from Dean A?
Well, yeah, and I don't know if, hold on a second. Yeah, read that out loud. And then I think we have more. I don't know if we can answer. Yeah, go ahead and read them and I'll put them up. Hold on.
If law enforcement can't provide the white Elantra doing all the passes, how can you find this man guilty? Get a clue is correct. The passes at Linda Lane between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. is the Chrysler 300.
Yeah, and hopefully we're going to get clearer images because we know that Linda Lane isn't the clearest video
Right.
surveillance that they have. And I think Glitty Clue actually said that in his video at the beginning of his most recent video when he was talking about Gray Hughes. The very first clip and the very first thing that Get a Clue points out to us is that there is better footage. There is a clearer shot. So we can't say for sure, but we do know that hopefully, at least for us, we're going to be able to see with our own eyes something a little bit clearer and determine whether it is a Chrysler 300 or not.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Gigolo.
Is that Brady Giglio or whatever it is? I got to learn about that.
Brady trial is ongoing. Thompson is accused of saying evidence did not exist when it actually did. Oh, okay. Huh. The defense is at a disadvantage since many witnesses won't cooperate, and how can they impeach their testimony without at least a statement from them? So witnesses have to cooperate because you can make them a hostile witness. They don't have to agree to be a witness.
Really? Okay. Because it did sound like Ann Taylor was saying that people weren't talking to her. She did say that. I'll have to go back.
It might not be, but at the trial, she could still call, and they don't have to talk to her.
They just have to talk in general, like.
I don't know. I mean, usually, let's say I get a witness list. I might call them all to talk to them to see, what they're going to plan to say. And, but they might not talk to me. I'm the other party. So I think that's what she was saying. Ann Taylor was saying, she's just having a hard time getting anything out of the witnesses from the witness list. And that's just to her disadvantage because she wants to know as much as possible because you don't want to put a witness on the stand if you don't know what they're going to say.
Right. You don't know the answer to the question.
Right. Or what they're going to be up there for.
Well, do you want to, is there anything else you want me to share? Any other documents before we move on to the next segment?
No, I think we probably did that justice.
No, thank you for breaking that down again. We really appreciate your expertise in this particular area. And I know, we just appreciate everything you share to us because you do seem to bring a lot of insight to what we're dealing with the court terminology. Hold on. All right. So I've got the next video for you. What did it say?
I say Rocco because when you turn your camera off, Rocco comes up.
My screensaver. I figure he gets enough views for this channel. He should be the screensaver.
Yeah.
All right. So this next video we're going to play, set this clip up for us. So we're transitioning to our commentary part of the show. And we want to talk a little bit about Crime Circus and Crime Circus Colt. They have been releasing videos, but they have yet to say anything about the Idaho 4 for almost a month now. And some of the big fans are talking about it. So we've got some really interesting sound bites for you. And so first we're going to play a clip from my husband bringing up the question. Then we're going to bring up a clip from a couple of other people. So here we go. Without ado, here is...
This is an emergency broadcast into the Moscow, Idaho investigation.
Hi, I just want to welcome back my husband today. Thank you for joining us again. And recently we were talking and you voiced some concerns about the true crime community. And I just thought you could tell us a little bit more about what your thoughts today.
I don't know if it's a concern, but I'm just curious where Drip Drop's been. I watched a show, Chaos Sector, that said he stole their information on a few things, and haven't seen him since. Just pretty curious, wondering where he is. Thanks. I'm just curious, why haven't I seen Drip Drop? Is it because he got called out by J.B. Gunner on doxing the president of Idaho? Or is it because of the Chaos Sector? Or is it because he talked too much about the tunnel and now he has a gag order against him? That's what I want to know.
Okay. All right. So I thought, since that's what people are talking about, this is the word on the street, maybe I'd bring up what Chaos Sector said about Drip Drop. Before I bring that up, I thought I'd just list out all the people that Drip Drop has beef with recently. So there has been Gray Hughes, JB Gunner, Chaos Sector, MPD, the FBI, the Cult of Odin, the Catholic Church, the President of Utah, stay-at-home mothers, grandmothers, and homemakers, the Hex Crypto Corporation, the Cowboys, who I think we have just...
The Dallas Cowboys? Oh,
no, the
Cowboys on the video. The four
that we're pretty sure were FBI
okay.
field.
I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. So, and then the list does go on, but those were the major ones. And so I thought, I really do enjoy Chaos Sector. I enjoy their work and I respect them. So I thought I'd pull up their video because they do have a little beef with Drip Drop. And I think it's just
rightly
normal.
so, I think. Rightly
so. Yeah, Gia, you've seen it. All right. So let's just go ahead and see what Chaos Sector has to say. It's about a 6-minute clip. Here we go.
But let me get back to the clown, because they really grind my gears. To the clown, don't claim to be the first one to claim that the police cruiser was the vehicle in the Linda Lane surveillance, because we all know you never presented that theory in the past. You viewed our episode where we presented that theory and then presented the theory to your audience as if you were the only one who had examined that. In your own words, sir.
Mockery of the true evidence that we've uncovered. Speaking of true evidence, let's check out the Linda Lane footage. We can see a vehicle that does passes at least 3 or 4 times on this footage. This seems to line up exactly with what they say in the PCA, the probable cause affidavit to arrest Bryan Kohlberger. Some people are convinced this is a Hyundai Elantra. I'm not so convinced, and you're not so convinced either. And sometimes certain creators are just wrong. No matter how many times they slander me, no matter how many little animations they make, no matter how rude they are to their own audience, they're just wrong. And that's why we're going to take our own look at the Linda Lane footage with our own animation. Let's do some overlays. We're going to find out exactly whose car this is right here and right now. Allegedly. Anyways, I don't think anybody else has done this.
This fucker, I tell you. Flat out lying to those cult members, knowing damn well he got that theory from the chaos. Think about it. I want you to get inside the mind of the clown. Watches our episode breaking that down, decides to steal that theory and upload a video claiming they don't recall anyone addressing that. Disregarding the chaos. Oh, we don't have close to 500,000 subscribers like you, so we're insignificant. We don't deserve recognition from the big bad clown. We're peasants. You're stealing from peasants. Oh, most of the subs are not real people, though. I mean, this is full-fledged fuckery right here. But let's continue.
So I'm going to do it. I'm usually the first, just like when I said, boom. I was the first with that, too. So, check out the car on the screen. We're taking the undercover police officer car and we're putting it on top of the Linda Lane footage. Let's see if it lines up. Let's see if it's a match. Is this a match? Is this cop car the car that we see on Linda Lane? Yeah, it is. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't rocket science. That car is a match. I've previously been referred to as Lord Drip Drop because I own a little piece of land in Scotland. But maybe now you can also call me the True Crime Animation King.
Doesn't seem like a big deal to some, but what it indicates to me is that not only do you secretly watch the Chaos Sector, but you essentially steal from us as well. We never steal from others, and if it's something we were inspired to research where someone discovered it first, we give credit to them and their investigative work. Because passing something off as your own authentic theory in a way where you are taking credit for that theory is very dishonest. The clown could have created his video like such. Quote, shout out to Chaos Sector, who examined the police cruiser and was convinced that it was the white vehicle in the Linda Lane surveillance. Unquote. You see how easy that is? But instead, the clown tries to take credit for something they had never previously presented to their audience. In a very narcissistic way, I might add. Don't recall the clown examining the audio in the Linda Lane surveillance neither, which clearly is linked to the murders. Many claimed it was fake audio, but a true crime investigator, which the clown considers themselves, would have to examine it firsthand to determine this. Don't recall the clown analyzing that audio from Linda Lane and linking the time frames with the actual crime occurring at the victim's home. And all of the audio evidence would suggest that the crime occurred before, yes, before, any white vehicle was spotted. Yet, the clown can dig into some cult who they suggest may have been behind the murders. Go figure. This is not investigative work that needs to be really dug into to find it's right there in your face. Come to think about it, the clown avoids most of that entire circle of peers. Dylan and Bethany are a given, but I don't recall the clown focusing on Bonnie and Clyde, at least to the extent of linking them to the murders. We all know they're linked to the murders, by the way. It's awfully familiar to, once again, the Kanika Jenkins case. Many in the J4K community, which was also the true crime community, avoided holding Kanika's peers accountable when clearly they had conspired against her that night. The clown sends you down a rabbit hole away from the core of the investigation. And although some things are relevant, it's about pulling you away from the core of the investigation and receiving financial gain while doing so. For example, the clown's tunnel theory. Although it may have some relevance without any context or connection to anyone, such as students, you can prove use that tunnel, it's merely an empty theory. And ironically, it provokes the audience to travel down that rabbit hole, similar to the tunnel, or focusing on Brent Kopacka and linking him to Kohlberger and the murders in Idaho. Not really a problem at face value, but although I agree there's something to Kopacka's death, the clown was so eager to link his death to the Idaho murders. Kopacka was from Pullman, Kohlberger was from Pullman. This doesn't mean they were associated in any way. Like pulling teeth, the clown just wouldn't give up on what he claimed was a possible connection. Now, some may agree that there is a possible connection. And that's the kicker. The relativity convinces the audience to buy into it. When right smack dab in Moscow, there is enough to dig into. For example, Dylan and Bethany. The clown obviously broke down the pair, but what they didn't do was build on knowing that the housemates were awake and aware. That is the core foundation of your investigative work. You have to start with that dynamic because it leads to the who, the what, the why, the when, the where, the how. That's how you establish your foundation. And trust me, everything starts to come together, despite not having the actual evidence at your disposal. You want to know why? Because there's something called common sense or your innate intelligence. And this is where the clown deviates from. They have the foundation, but decided to fly off the handle, suggesting some cult of Odin may have been responsible for the murders as a possible theory.
Well, so there it is. I thought that was the most official video put out, kind of with a beef to Drip Drop. But there were so many people talking about Drip Drop in the last month. I can recall, I haven't seen any of the videos, but Drip Drop has spoke a lot about how he hasn't called him out by name, but he's inferred that Gray Hughes has been beefing with him. And I've heard JB Gunner come out and really criticize Drip Drop on the tunnel theory. And whether or not you believe in the tunnels played a role, I mean, rather than attacking people, we should debunk theories and we should talk in depth about theories, because that's how you stop all of this conspiracy. That's a lot of conspiracy. When people suppress ideas and suppress speech, that's when conspiracies start coming out. So I do think that I feel bad in that aspect. What else I want to say is, in the comments after I released this video with my husband, several people were commenting that they had heard Drip Drop has been getting threats. He's been getting harassment. He's had threats to his family. And this has been done via email. I've also heard rumors, and not necessarily specifically towards Drip Drop, but I've heard rumors about quiet lawsuits to some YouTubers. And I just want to bring that up because JB Gunner had also mentioned that Drip Drop had essentially doxed the president of the University of Idaho in one of his videos. And I wonder if could there be another quiet lawsuit going on? So, and Drip Drop has also spoke about him frequently being in contact with MPD of the Moscow Police Department. So again, he has said things that, anyway, so those are just a couple things I wanted to bring up before we bring up Drip Drop's defense. Anything you want to add, Gia?
No, but when I was watching the video from Chaos Sector, and and I really like that they're no nonsense. I love their fuckery. I like when she says that.
Yeah,
when they talk about that. But anyways, I don't know. I feel like what Drip Drop might have done was go to their channel and I think he did what they said, and that's a shame. And I would hope that he maybe would learn from that after they called him out on it. But as far as why he's done nothing in a month, I don't know. It could very well be that he did feel threatened. His family felt threatened. There probably are people threatening him, whether they really know who he is or not. But he could have made the decision to cover other things for the safety of his family, and that might be accurate. Or it could be like you're saying, maybe he has information and they've called him as a witness somehow in the trial for something, and maybe the gag order applies to him. Or maybe he was served with a cease and desist from the channel. I don't know.
That's a possibility.
It'd be interesting if someone could ask him that.
Yeah. So if maybe I'll become a member. I don't know how much it is, but maybe I should become a member to Crime Circus or his Patreon. Just see if we can get an update. I mean, he's definitely on his channel.
He's doing it. So I would go on a live and ask him on a live.
That's a good idea. And I just thought Drip Drop does speak on this, but he speaks on it briefly, and he speaks sort of in codes and in riddle. So I made a little montage. It's 9 minutes long, and it talks about all different aspects of this. So I'm going to play that because I really want to put this into Drip Drop's words. And leave your comments, and we want to know what you think too. Yep. So here we go. And Drip Drop.
This is an emergency broadcast into the Moscow, Idaho investigation. The crime scene has now been officially destroyed forever. Now, evidence is gone forever. And with the destruction of the house, we now have to talk about the tunnel. This is serious, and you don't want to miss a single second of this presentation. Yeah. Without further ado, let's see what I have to say for myself this time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Crime Circus. My name's Drip Drop, and I'll be your host as always. This is an emergency broadcast. My next episode was supposed to be all about the corruption at the police department, and I have pages and pages and pages worth of notes that we are going to get to, but unfortunately not in this episode. Right here, right now, we're going to discuss the destruction of the house, but we're not going to discuss it like those other YouTubers have discussed it. The way they've discussed it is disgusting. Yeah. We're going to cut right to the chase without any filler because your time is super valuable. We're going to check out pictures. We're going to look at videos. We're going to have some insight, some input. We're going to take some guesses, and we are going to watch and observe the things we see. There is a tunnel, and there is a potential secret room. I keep trying to tell myself that this is just a guessing show. This is just someone else's fantasy. But the more that I do this, the more that I look, the more that I uncover, the more that I observe, it's scary. It seems so much more than just a guess. If someone keeps guessing things and it keeps being factual, well, whatever that means, that's your choice. People have been emailing me, messaging me, commenting all day and somebody. I'm just doing the best investigation I can for the victims, and we're just observing what we see. Are we supposed to keep lying to ourselves? We know what our eyeballs see, and I can't lie to myself. How about you? Right here. Right here, right here, right here. Keep in mind, this was supposed to be a police corruption video. I just threw this video together spur of the moment, last minute after reviewing these news clips. As for the tunnels, I have a ton more information that I didn't even get to in this video. This really should be a two-parter because I have a whole lot of information about the tunnels in Moscow, Idaho. Pretty much every single city in the world has underground tunnels, so don't act like it's weird. Or you might be weird. I keep hoping somebody can debunk the things I'm saying, but all they do is clickbait and fake news. Anyone that's ever claimed to debunk me has only been lying to you and lying to themselves, hoping to get clicks and revenue. Don't give it to them. They're not worth your time. They're really not. I mean, seriously, think about it. Imagine doxing yourself on live stream in Moscow, Idaho, revealing you're staying at the Best Western, and then trying to cover by saying, of course, you're going to be staying somewhere much nicer than the Best Western. Don't forget to put the super chat down below, courtesy of stay-at-home mothers and grandmothers that are funding this madman's trip. Yeah, and you know that's true. Boom! Really though, that man should stop e-begging forever. And until next time, remember to stay safe out there because you know it's a dangerous world. Jump right in. We are just going to start this video off properly with some craziness. I made a super special important video, which I'm going to link down below. And then within 24 hours of that, the FBI went into the house looking for more clues. It really makes you wonder, did they watch my video and then decide to go look for those clues? Yeah. And then I made a video on a fallen soldier. And within hours, the Pullman prosecutor made an official statement saying the police have done no wrongdoing. And nobody ever accused them of any wrongdoing. We just want the 911 call because it's a closed case. And then I made a video on the big black house on the hill with a direct line of sight to 1122 Queen Road, you know whose childhood home, and then you know who made the official statement that that house will be destroyed on December 28th, 2023. And this comes after they said they were going to preserve the house. Yeah. This is crazy. You could imagine how I feel when I make videos and then things happen shortly after. You could imagine how I feel. It's like I'm living in some sort of dreamlike nightmare or some sort of scripted reality show. And to be honest with you, it feels more like a real-life horror movie. It really does. Because how many times is this going to keep happening? This is scary. And it's getting scarier too. It kind of makes me regret making that video about the big black house on the hill with you know who that lives there. Okay, I'll just say it. The president of the University of Idaho. And his childhood home was 1122 Queen Road. Some people knew about that, yeah. But most people didn't. And I'm the biggest true crime YouTube channel in the world investigating Moscow, Idaho. You can check the numbers, they don't lie. Independently, all on our own, single-handedly, with no help from anybody else. We're basically half as big as Court TV, and we pack twice the punch. Yeah. Boom. We are the biggest true crime network in the world. And that's not even deniable. The cult numbers do not lie. We're an up-and-coming growing cult, and you love it. Yeah, you do. Anyways, maybe I shouldn't have made that video about the house on the hill. And then maybe the crime scene would have lasted a little longer. Anybody with half a brain cell knows you shouldn't destroy evidence before a conviction in a murder case. This isn't even about what's morally right or wrong. This is just basic common sense that we like to use here at Crime Circus. A lot of people in my comments section have told me I'm the best investigator in the whole world. And I'm starting to believe it. Because the things that I'm seeing don't sit well with me. We've talked about crypto. We've talked about cowboys. We still don't know who the cowboys were inside that house. We don't know if there's any connection to the cult of Odin. There might be. You don't know until you investigate. You can't just throw a dart at the dartboard and assume it must be the creepy guy that moved in from out of state that's been living in Pullman, Washington for 3.5 months. And we have to ask ourselves, why were the police pulling him over so often for minor traffic infractions? And why did they ask him for his phone number? I've been pulled over a few times here and there and no one's ever asked for my phone number. So what did that lady officer need Bryan Kohlberger's phone number for? Was she going to call him on his personal time, or was she doing something that she was told to do for something much, much bigger than herself? We need to know. You know we do. Now, moving right along, the tunnels. Some people still deny the tunnels. Paid disinfo agents. They're a real thing? And I think I've spotted a few. Some of them obsessively make videos on this Moscow, Idaho Bryan Kohlberger case. So either they're sickly obsessed with Bryan Kohlberger, or they're being paid to give you disinfo. And I think it might be a little of both, personally. They want any viewer that clicks their video to believe they're a nut, a crazy person, out of their mind if they believe in the tunnels. I'm here to tell you 100% for a fact, tunnels exist in Moscow, Idaho. This is well-documented history. It's on their official website. Anybody with a 10 seconds worth of time in a Google search engine can find tunnels exist in Moscow, Idaho. This isn't even deniable. So the tunnels do exist. The only question is, do the tunnels go to the crime scene? We don't know, but we need to know. We're guessing. It's a hypothesis. And if you don't know what a hypothesis is, let's check out the definition of a hypothesis.
Okay. So, just want to give a couple immediate reactions. The first thing is that I relate to Drip Drop and Crime Circus, and just the stress of creating this podcast. I agree with him. Like, there are some things you just, when you're studying these things to create content for other people, you have to read about things in at a level or in a quantity that you normally wouldn't. Like, I don't read about this type of murders and stuff like this and all these criminal activities, and now I have to binge read it to make sure I'm creating proper and accurate content for my audience. So that in itself is stressful, just reading those words that I don't normally do. I mean, I take extra precautions now. I look over my shoulder a lot. I mean, there's stress involved. Plus, there are eerie things that happen in the comments and interactions with different people I won't get into, but that causes some stress. And yeah, I just want to say I relate to some of it, but not at his level. I mean, obviously he's a much huger creator and he makes a bigger impact. So I think that the feelings that I'm saying are probably magnetized, times 100 to what I feel. The other thing is that I do think that it's really rude that people completely dismiss the tunnels altogether. I think the point that he's trying to make is we are looking for entry points and exit points because we don't know all of those things. We're looking at places they might have hid. There's also, I don't bring it up a lot, but there are also talks about OnlyFans and special rooms that they did those things in. There's also dismissing that there are tunnels underneath the King Road house. It's not something you can completely dismiss altogether. There could be secret rooms in there. They don't have to be mining tunnels and they don't have to be utility tunnels. I've heard from people there that there was, and I can't prove this as a fact, but Gia and I are both from the Northeast and we're familiar with the Underground Railroad, which was something that helped African Americans move to a place where they weren't, move from the deep South where they were enslaved up north. And people have talked about some of these underground railroads could possibly be in Pullman. So there could be that house could potentially be, at least not the newer edition, but the older edition could possibly be that old, that could be to the Civil War era. So I just don't like dismissing anything. If you don't like an idea, then debunk it.
Right.
Don't just
and I
yell.
wouldn't. Yeah.
Fight
To
the
your
idea
point.
person.
I'm sorry.
No?
I keep.
No,
To
keep
your point about the underground tunnels, because you're in New Hampshire right now, so the house next door to us, growing up, that house was part of the Underground Railroad, and there are tunnels under that house even. So I mean, I agree with him. There are tunnels everywhere. There are tunnels everywhere. I wouldn't dismiss anything like that. It doesn't sound crazy to me at all.
Thank you, Gia, and also, do you speaking of stress, I mean, obviously you don't sit around reading about, true crime all the time. You obviously increased your volume in the 5 months we've been covering this. Do you feel any additional stress? I mean, you must, just repetitively reading those words over and over again. I mean, do you want to speak on that a little bit or any of your personal feelings on that?
I mean, I'm a true crime junkie. I love it. I have to say, like back in the day, you know, I'm older than you, but I remember my friend turning me on to Anne Rule, who was like one of the very first true crime writers, you know, at least one that I ever, and she, do you know who she is, Anne Rule? She wrote
No.
about Ted Bundy. She actually worked in a call center for, I think, suicide prevention with Ted Bundy, and he'd been to her house, commented about her daughter. I mean, just like, and then realized after he was the serial killer, and she wrote a book about him. But you know, I just find it intriguing and interesting. But, you know, I think with this, the way I get stressed is there's just so much information coming out from so many different places. And the stress for me is trying to figure out, what do we believe? What don't we believe? What is okay to present? What should we stay away from? You know, because especially with the platform like YouTube or anything else like that, we're kind of lucky. I don't we have very nice viewers, and the comments are usually on track and lovely and all of that. But I do watch other shows and I see some of the comments, and that would really stress me out, is when people start getting combative and missing the mark on, like, because we've always said the whole reason for doing this are those 4 lives that were lost, and we want to keep that in the forefront. And, you know, sometimes that gets lost in the weeds when people start going off on down rabbit holes and this and that. And I think that's what's frustrating to me, is really wanting to get to the trial. I know there needs to be time for all the evidence to be discovered and looked at and investigated and gone through. But I do feel a sense of urgency to get to the trial, because there's been so much talk over all these months that I would like to finally see some facts and hear the testimony, and to really be able to dive deep into it and see where the speculation was adding up and where it wasn't. I think we're going to have a lot of answers.
I know. I want to hear some of these facts. I want to hear the evidence. I want to know. I want this case to begin. And that is something I keep thinking about, is we have all of these guesses that we made, and it's going to be so, it's going to be so interesting to know where our instincts led us correctly and where they didn't. Just to speak on what you were just saying, I agree. And just so I know Drip Drop will get a notification that we're using his work, and we're going to mention him or tag him so he gets one. And we just want you to know, Drip Drop, we miss you. Please come
Yeah,
back. Please come back and report on the case. We want to hear your thoughts.
right. And we're genuinely curious, because you had such good material and you were coming out with it so often, and it really made us think about a lot of things. And so we've missed watching. Yeah, and we're just curious. We know you're okay because you're reporting on other things, but yeah, just curious if you lost interest or.
Yeah, we want to know, Drip Drop. And just to throw one of your quotes back at you that we just played, you said you are the largest true crime investigator covering the Idaho 4. Your quote, not ours. So come back, and we want to know what you have to say. We want to know. We need to know.
Yeah, because someone mentioned maybe he's just sitting back because there's really nothing going on right now, and until we get to but that doesn't seem his style.
No, there's plenty going on. And he had, he was supposed to do a police corruption video. It was supposed to be his next video, and he didn't do it. In fact, I hope I went over all the, your brother gave me a lot to go over. I hope, when we're looking
Mark B said, Drip Drop said he'd stay with the case to the end. And so, yeah, I guess there must be a reason. I guess it's probably not just he's bored. What did you say, Joey? What? My brother?
No, he just gave me a bunch of questions. So let's see. Oh yeah, the other thing we wanted to ask, if I hadn't asked already, if we do have any members of Drip Drop's channel watching, if he is uploading content regarding specifically the Idaho 4, let us know. Yeah, I think that's just. Yeah, I think that's all the questions that I had from, if I think of any during our next clip, I'll pose them to you. But anyway, so I'm going to segue into our next segment. But again, Drip Drop, please come back. We want you here on YouTube. So our next segment we're going to do is I'm going to pull up Christina Randall. And before I pull her up, I understand that there are certain subjects that are really
Hey, Strange.
polarizing. Oh, is there?
Hi, Strange.
Hey,
Strange
Thea.
first person.
We have so many good comments. I wish you could control the comments. I'm off location, so everything is more difficult for me today. Sorry.
And I'm not usually the controller.
All right, so this next segment I want to bring up. So there are certain subjects that are polarizing within this true crime community when we're covering the Idaho 4 case. I want to just also let you folks know that my goal is always to be as objective as possible when I cover this. It's just something ingrained in me. My father is an award-winning journalist. My brother is a television producer for news. Objectivity is my only goal. It's like ingrained in me. And so I do like to show both sides of the story. So I'm about to bring up a clip from a creator named Christina Randall. And I understand that she believes one way of the spectrum, that our guests don't necessarily reflect our views, but if I show one side of the story, I really like to show the other side of the coin. So I want to bring up Christina Randall, but what we're really talking about is defensive strategies, and Gia and I will get into it after we play her clip. It's about a 6-minute clip, and again, Christina Randall has some very strong thoughts, but she's just one of my most favorite creators. So I love her to pieces, and I just, I want to show her point of view. So
Yep.
With that done, and here we go.
Are really challenging the genetic part of it. And to me, it's like, why does that matter? When he goes to trial, they're not going to use the fact that he was matched with a 23andMe to find him guilty. They're going to use the fact that that DNA on the knife sheath matches Bryan Kohlberger's DNA. When they swabbed him, it was basically a perfect match. But I get what Ann Taylor and them are trying to do. They're trying to find any tiny little loophole because that DNA is the biggest part of this case. And that makes me uncomfortable, y'all. And this is just me talking to y'all like if we was sitting on my back porch, okay? It gives me Jose Baez vibes. Y'all remember that watched the Casey Anthony trial? He pulled out every stunt in the book. You never knew the next person that was coming to testify, what was going to come out of his mouth. When Jose Baez got up there to do his opening statements,
you're going to hear all kinds of bizarre family behavior that just doesn't make sense.
To defend Casey Anthony, he spewed out all kind of stuff that he never even talked about in the trial. Never did. He said any old thing. It was a circus. It was a full-on circus. And by the end of Casey Anthony's trial, the doggone juries were so confused. They were like, we don't know what to think. We cannot find her guilty because they had so much confusing information. And I almost feel like we're already headed down that path with these antics that it seems like the defense is pulling. And I get it. Bryan Kohlberger deserves a fair trial. Also, Bryan Kohlberger, you guys remember how he had like a certain amount of time to come up with his alibi, and they were kind of dangling this alibi over the prosecution's head, like, we'll give you the alibi if you'll tell us this, Well, guess who his alibi was for the night of the crime, which, mind you guys, Bryan Kohlberger's phone pinged over there by the house 12 times like he had been stalking them, including right before the crime and after the crime, and his phone just happened to turn off or go onto airplane mode for 2 hours during the times of the crime. Okay, just what a coinky dink, okay? But his alibi for that time is that he likes to take car rides alone at nighttime by himself. Now, a lot of people like to do that. I mean, I used to do it whenever I was younger. I don't do it anymore. But, you just take car rides and you listen to music. And I don't know. Why does she need to go back 3 generations to learn about Bryan Kohlberger's family? To tell me Did he do this to these 4 people or not? Like, where was he on this night? Okay, his alibi was that he was riding in the car by himself. He just happened to turn his phone off in the 2 hours that the situation happened, and his phone just happened to ping there 12 different times around the time that the 4 students' lives were taken, including the next morning, and his DNA just happened to be found on the knife sheath, and you're going back 3 generations for what? His great-great-grandpappy? What does he got to do with this? I don't understand it, y'all, but maybe y'all can let me know in the comments what that has to do with anything. Why they need this long extension on the trial while these families are sitting here wanting to put this behind them so they can somewhat move forward, and she wants to go back 3 generations. I don't get it. I just don't understand. Maybe they should go through that 51 terabytes. Maybe that would be a little bit more, productive. Maybe they should go through that and interview more than 10% of the 500 witnesses. 500. Now, we all know that they're not going to actually call 500 different people up on a stand. They're probably going to call the ones that they feel are the most valuable. But the fact that they have 500, but nevertheless, towards the end, the prosecution did seem more sympathetic, I guess, and understanding that the defense would need more time. But I don't know. Now, let me just get into some of my opinions. Again, my very, very unprofessional opinion. Okay, my backseat driver, my Monday morning quarterback self, okay? I told y'all in this last year in a video, I said, I got a feeling that they're going to be trying to find a loophole to get this case thrown out versus actually defending him. And man, it just seems like it, you guys. It does. And something that I want to say, it was Kaylee's family said last year, that Bryan Kohlberger in jail, he gets along so well. He don't need no protection. He's in there helping other inmates with their law paperwork. So he's in there 24/7, going through documents, going through statutes, looking for loopholes. Because mind you, he's a criminology major, okay? Doing all of this, looking for all these little loopholes, and he's, in my opinion, part of his own defense team. While he's in there helping others, probably getting all kind of snacks, and because that's how it works in jail. He's probably trading his services and getting along with everybody. While you got these 4 families out here shattered, completely shattered. And listen, Bryan Kohlberger is still innocent until proven guilty. When you talk about, let's say, Ted Bundy was on his own defense team as well. And he sat there and did the same exact things. It's just so weird to me. It is weird. They are fighting tooth and nail to get this indictment thrown out. Then they're fighting to get the DNA stuff. Still, they brought up during this trial on the 26th, and Taylor did, saying, we still cannot figure out how they made the match from the genealogy to Bryan Kohlberger. And in my opinion, why does it matter? If the FBI helped them, if they had a satellite camera, if it was Bryan, it was Bryan. But they're looking for that little loophole, in my opinion. If it was his DNA and it was found on the knife sheath, they're trying to figure out the genealogy thing so they can find something wrong with it so they can get the DNA thrown out. But if it was his DNA, then he needs to stand trial for this. I don't know, you guys. This ain't gonna go just as smooth as any old case. And that, to me, makes me feel like even more that he's the guy. I still think he's the guy. I know a lot of y'all think he's the guy, and some of y'all think he's not the guy, but I still think he's the guy. Okay? Maybe 1 or 2 coinky-dinks, but all of these things, and even now the way that they're handling this, it seems like they have no defense. They have no defense for him. And so they're looking for a loophole to get it thrown out. Hopefully they won't find one. Y'all let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. My heart goes out.
All right. Well, that was a lot. I have a few notes I've taken down while that was going. Gia, can I love to get your immediate reaction after everything Christina just said?
No, you go ahead. I mean, I agree with her. It's not a lot It looked like the last part of that was more recent. The first part was 5 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Compilation. Okay, yeah, because that was
Yeah,
the first.
and I put on the second part. I put in the last week. You just must not have caught it.
Yeah, I probably looked away for a second. I just that's what I thought it was. I don't know. I don't feel like she said anything new. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I like the way she clearly she has a great way of putting things into. She has a great way of clarifying things to her audience.
Yeah. No, I love her. I like her style. I love her directness. I like the way she thinks, and you can see the wheels turning, and I love everything about it. But go ahead. What notes did you take?
Oh no, I'm just going to say that the first thing I want to emphatically state is that what I've learned since covering true crime is that where I want to stand is innocent until proven guilty, as always, when I'm covering anybody
Yeah.
who's charged and not convicted. So I want to say that first. I hesitate to ever tell what my actual feelings are on a subject to subjectively show you things. But another person who brought that to my attention, someone I actually don't listen to anymore for other reasons, but was J.B. Gunner. And he really drove home a point to me when I was watching him one time where he said, this country is about innocent until proven guilty. The alternative is guilty until proven innocent. And that's where a government or other people can come in and take what you have until you've been proven. So it's important that we always are innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
With that said, I will say that there was one statement you made when you were giving your updates was the judge had made some sort of statement saying, like, even if we were to find one of these discrepancies in the charges, there's still enough that they wouldn't feel comfortable releasing BK from jail. And JB Gunner the other day came on, just while I'm on the same subject of JB Gunner. My husband was saying he was watching him the other day, and he came on and said, I've always really felt that BK is innocent. He goes, but one thing really upset me the other day that made me pause for a second. And he said he can't quite understand why BK, and I have my arguments to this. I'm not saying this is my opinion. Again, JB Gunners. He can't understand why he wouldn't want the trial immediately, because if you're innocent, to spend another year in jail is beyond him, is what JB Gunner said. Again, not saying I agree with it or not, just throwing the information out to you guys. I do want to go back to the Casey Anthony thing, though, because I have heard some dirt about that lately. And I just want to bring up that in that case, I do feel, looking back in retrospect, for the evidence that they had, I feel that she was overcharged. I don't know if you can. I don't know how you ever would have been able to find the first-degree murder charge in that. But I don't know. And so I believe that was one of the problems with that trial. But the confusion that was caused by Jose Baez, it is absolute gold as for a defendant. And I think that if that's what Ann Taylor is going for, I mean, it's a model that works. It's a model he's used multiple times, and it's a model we've seen other defense attorneys use too. And I think maybe you might have some knowledge on that, Gia, you could speak about. Like defensive strategies and how he used confusion as his defensive strategy.
No, I mean, but I guess that is because if you're just putting in well, at this point, it's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt, right? So it's not just probable. So I think that the defense attorneys and prosecute, like it's all smoke and mirrors, and they know that they're dealing with a jury who you've got bias because they're individuals, and juries have instructions that they need to follow, but I don't think that they can fully separate the emotions from the legal mind, or like the law. You're supposed to follow the law, right? But they get caught up. So if Jose Baez is there and he's making it so confusing, and then they're going, gosh, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. He's trying to insert doubt into the jury, and he's hoping he gets enough of them so that there isn't a conviction. But I don't think Bryan, of course he doesn't want it right away, because that's not going to give the defense team time to prepare. And it isn't always about like if you really did it, but you could spin a story. I mean, there's been many people convicted that have been proven later to be innocent. So I
Amen.
think that both sides really need to give it the time. And, I mean, it's not so simple as like, well, I'm innocent, so let's just go. No, that's a big risk.
That's
'Cause
true.
you're
I think
saying-
maybe it's when people have spent time in prison, they might have a different perspective on that, because I do believe he's an ex-con, or I'm not sure, but maybe that's the perspective he was taking. He was just like, I can't imagine that somebody would want to spend another year in jail. Not my view.
Yeah, but
just
he's in jail. He's not in prison. Like he's in the county jail underneath the courthouse, getting his vegan meals and his, so that's not the same life he's going to have if he's convicted. It's very different.
Yeah. I wonder, she mentioned something about in this, and I don't know where she got this because she didn't cite her source, but she said that he is interacting with other inmates. She gave specifics. As far as I knew, he was in isolation.
Yeah, I was going to say, other people said he's in isolation. I doubt he's interacting.
That's what I heard too.
He might be able to through like in-prison mail. I don't know, right? Like inter-office member. But I don't think he's physically with anybody. I mean,
because one of the conversations I had today, so I was watching A.R. Hayes' channel and Convict's Thoughts. If you don't know who he is, he's got a great channel. You should definitely check it out. And he was talking about, in fact, I think that what I was watching was something about Lori Daybell, and he was talking about what she would be expected when she gets into the prison system in Arizona. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is what he explained is when you come in for those hearings the day of court, you basically, and you mentioned this too, Gia, you don't go through the front door. You get shipped down into these, sometimes it's like a 16-hour day, but you get shipped down into these like barracks under the ground, and they put you in holding cells. And these cells are designed for about 5 people, but they'll jam like 20, 30 people in there. What he said is people will come in and they'll be all cleaned up, showered, got their hair done for a court, like looking their best for the judge, and they'll get thrown into these cells, and they're basically at the mercy of this mob. Sometimes they get stepped on, sometimes they get peed on, and they come into court and their hair's all messed up and they've got dirt on their face, and they just look like, they've been breathing in this toxic air. And so I brought that up to your brother when we were talking about this. And I'm like thinking, when I heard Christine, he's in Gen Pop, that he's going to be put in one of these cells, and he comes out so nice looking in his suit. Like, what your brother was saying is he doesn't think he's still in isolation as far as we know. Like, he wouldn't look nice, I don't think, coming up into court if he was in general population in one of these holding cells. Like, he's in a clean suit that's pressed and his hair's all done, I don't know.
I think he's on his own underneath. When he's at the courthouse, he's by himself.
Yeah.
He's not put in with general population.
So I wish I could be more quick with the comments, guys. I'm so sorry about that today. I'm on my cell phone. I can kind of hardly see what's going on with the little screen.
Yeah, they're kind of talking amongst themselves more than.
Either way, I always love the comments because
we read them.
Yeah, we get such insightful thoughts from you folks. And I did see on here that it looks like Pia is going to be on Tommy's live stream tonight. So that's Once Upon a True Crime, and their live stream's really entertaining. Really entertaining. Tommy has really nice graphics, so you'll see him. And I think Pia is still planning on doing a live stream on Monday at 4:20, and I was going to join her. What'd you say, Gia?
I didn't say anything. I was just looking because they were talking about that in the chat. Like, she was saying she's going to be on live in a few hours or something. So maybe she could, strange suspicion, right? Let us know when your next live stream is and what time this one with Tommy starts. We can put it up for everyone. Yes, Monday at 4:20. That's our live stream. Okay. And then you're on with Tommy. Yeah, we'll join you Monday. I'll put that in my calendar.
Gia, you should join us too. So yeah, Pia emailed me the link and I'll forward it to Gia as well. So you have a panel.
Oh, okay.
Tommy's at 7:30 tonight. So definitely check out Tommy. He calls us his true crime family. So he's our papa. Tommy, we love
Send me
you.
the link or the name.
Yeah, or comment the link below too so people can see. Yeah, Tommy is the sweetest.
I don't know. I don't know the channel. What's his channel?
Once Upon a True Crime.
Once Upon a True Crime. Okay.
And he's got quite the crew, so he usually has a full panel up. But even when it's only Tommy, he's one of these creators who comes out with a really nice agenda for his live stream. So it's not just like the Wild West. It's focus based. Oh, you too, Pia.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I feel like this was a really intense live stream. We went over so many subjects. Yeah. Once again, please leave your comments below. We love everything you have to say. And I want to remind you to all visit Gia's channel and subscribe to her. It's at Gia Peru, and support her channel. It's the free way you can really help our show out. Thank you. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there, yeah, put her. Yeah, there you go. YouTube.
So there's the link, and you can find that live chat replay, you guys. Or just go to Once Upon a True Crime, and you'll see him at 7:30. So, and with that, we'll take this down. We love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great weekend.